Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another AP Sports video today. First off, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support on the last couple videos. It means a lot. We put a lot of time into this channel. And so I'm going to do something I don't ask of very often. If y'all could please subscribe, that would be great. We're trying to get to 400 subscribers right now. We've been on that road for a little bit, so if y'all could help out, that would be great. And let's get on to the video. So today I'm going to be talking about some sleepers, some steals that I think are going to be in this draft. There are every year. You look at the 13th pick several times. You've got Donovan Mitchell. I believe Devin Booker was also that 13th pick. I believe Giannis was 13 as well. I think Kawhi was 15. So there's sleepers in every single draft. And even second-round players. You have a second-round player in the finals right now, Chris Middleton, who you could argue is the second or third best player on that team. And then you also have a guy who just won the MVP that's a second-round pick in Nikola Jokic. So these drafts are going to have good players in every single round at every single pick every year. Hopefully this year I'm going to be right on at least one of these guys. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So my first sleeper pick, if you all recognize him from the thumbnail, it is JT Thor. He's 6'10". He went to Auburn, and he's 203 pounds. So he's a little light for 6'10". But the reason I have him on this list is almost strictly his potential. I don't know if he's necessarily an impact player right now on a good team, but I think if he's a late first, potentially earlier second round pick, that's where he should probably end up going. He's actually a pretty good shooter for his size at 6'10", which is why he's so intriguing. He's got off the dribble and off the catch potential. He's also got good shot creation potential. He's got a decent pull-up game, and he's pretty good off the dribble for a guy his size once again. He's an average post player. I don't know if I would say it's one of his strengths, especially for his size. He should be a little bit better. I think that will come along as he gains weight. As I mentioned earlier, he's only 203 pounds. He's kind of just filling out his frame. But one thing that's also really appealing about him, and something that I do think he can translate immediately for, it's his ability to catch lobs and his off-the-ball movement. Now, he's really good at recognizing when help is coming over, especially from his side of the defense, and he's good at rolling towards the basket. He also makes an impact as a shot blocker. I don't know if this will translate quite as well in the NBA, as he's going to be a little bit lighter. Once again, if he puts on a little bit of weight, I think he'll be there. Perimeter defense. Now, this is something that I'm really intrigued with, especially off the ball. He's a very good perimeter defender. He gets in the passing lanes really well. One thing in the NBA that's become a theme is switchability. The pick and roll and pick and fade are the strongest moves in basketball right now. And if you have someone that's as versatile as JT Thor, I think that he can make a large dent really in some teams' offensive strategy. And you're going to have to game plan for him every night defensively just because of his switchability. That is, once again, if he's able to gain some weight. I feel really strongly about his ability to switch on to guards and smaller players just because of his really raw athleticism. Once again, that can all be developed more. And then his shot blocking, as I mentioned earlier, is another strength. And then he's just an athlete. He's incredibly athletic, 6'10", so you don't see that every day. So yeah, JT Thor. Weaknesses. This is where he's not quite as good. He's not knocked down necessarily. He's a little inconsistent. He obviously has the form on the jumper I like. He's a lefty, so it looks a little weird to me being a righty, but it's still a good shot. He's got great form off the catch and dribble, but he's still inconsistent. At times, he has poor shot selection. I feel like his general basketball IQ on the ball can improve. As I mentioned earlier, off the ball, I think he's a really good cutter. And at times in the offense, he seems to just kind of fall into the fold. That can also be due to playing with a guy like Sheriff Cooper, who's taken a lot of shots. And he's not a great decision maker. Now, you see bigger wings coming into the NBA like Giannis and Ben Simmons. Those guys are great decision makers. I don't think he has the ability to lead an offense like they do. He potentially has... He can lead an offense maybe scoring the ball later down the road if he really becomes a better shooter, I think. He has that potential, but I don't necessarily believe that he can run an offense. I think he's going to be a good player with good size who can make a big impact on defense. Now, this was a very, very hard comparison for me. I had to do some digging to even try and find one. One website just had N-A. Like, he's so hard to compare anyone to just because it was really just like size and skill combination. You automatically think of a guy like Kevin Durant. He is nowhere near Kevin Durant. He's got a long way to go, and he's also got to put on weight to be more of a center build. So this was a very hard comparison for me. My mind naturally went to Thon Maker just because it's a very raw prospect coming into the draft who's very big but also has great shooting and even handling potential. Obviously, Thon Maker didn't pan out, but the one website that I did see that had a comparison was a higher upside Al-Farouq Aminu. I kind of agree with this. But yeah, that's JT Thor for you. I think he's going to be really strong defensively, especially in the NBA with his switchability in this positionless basketball. So the second guy I have is Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes is 6'5", 210 pounds. Some strengths of his jump shot. This is honestly the reason that I believe he is in this sleeper steal sort of category. He's supposed to be a later first round to earlier second round pick. His jump shot is incredible. He's able to rise above contest, which is something that I believe is very underrated. You'll see a guy close out on him, and very rarely does it affect his shot. He's able to do that with ease, and he's got a quicker release as well, which is really good. He can do this off the catch and dribble. I particularly think he looks great off the catch. And he's really, really able to shoot the deep three. If you watch his combine game, I believe he was 7 of 12 from the three-point line and hit a couple of very deep threes. So that was really promising to see that his range extends even further than just the NBA three-point line. He's shown flashes as a passer in college a little bit. He played point guard here and there. I would personally say he's more of a shooting guard, at least in the NBA. And especially in the combine, I saw some flashes. Granted, most of these passes weren't necessarily off the dribble. He had picked up his dribble and then made a pass. So I don't know if he has the point guard skills that I would want in a starting point guard. I think he could come off the bench and potentially be a combo guard and slide in because of injuries. But I don't think I would start him at point guard. I would start him as shooting guard if he were to start. One thing I really like about him is he's a willing screener. He's willing to be physical. One thing he does really well is set off-ball screens and then fades. He does really good fading actions off of these screens that he sets, and the defense will lose track of him, and he's able to hit threes off of these screens. He's a great defensive rebounder, and he's not scared to be physical. That comes in with 210 pounds at 6'5". He brings defensive intensity, and when I was watching the combine, his conditioning was fantastic. And I do believe that he's going to be an instant impact guy on an NBA team just because of how his jump shot at least looks to translate. So, some weaknesses here. He had a very, very weak freshman season at Kansas. That's where he went freshman year. He was supposed to be one of the top guys in this class, but he had a very weak freshman season. Transferred over to Houston, and since has been a very good player. This year, Houston went to the Final Four. I enjoyed watching them. I felt like he was a very pivotal part of that team as well. He doesn't necessarily have an explosive first step, but he is a little bit bigger for his size, and he's able to get in the paint to a degree. A lot because of his finesse, and teams will overplay his three-point shooting just because of how lethal it can be at times. He is slightly inconsistent, but when he's hitting them, he's really clicking on all cylinders. And so I don't think he has a tight enough handle to be a point guard. I think he's going to be better off the ball. That's another sort of weakness you could say, but I think that just makes him more of a shooting guard, and he has the potential to play point guard. I would not start him at point guard, as I mentioned earlier, though. Now, comparisons for him, I could think of a couple guys, but the one that I saw the most, especially in this combine that I watched, those off-ball screens that he sets and his just constant movement off of the ball to get open for threes really reminded me of Klay Thompson. Now, he is by no means as good a shooter as Klay Thompson, by no means as good a defender as Klay Thompson. This is just a comparison. I do think that his ability to shoot off the ball is very impressive. That's why I made this comparison. He's also an intense defender, and he has good size. He's not like necessarily a thin dude. He's not going to get run over, and he can switch on really probably 1 through 3 pretty well. I think that, he does have a little bit more point guard skills and a little bit more off the dribble than Klay Thompson, but the comparison here mostly came from their size as well as their ability to shoot off the ball and move without the ball. All right, number 3. We've got the point guard out of Baylor, Jared Butler. He is 6'3", 190 pounds, so he's a little bit smaller, but he's a point guard, so that's fine. His strengths, he's got incredibly deep range. This is off the catch or off the dribble once again. He's got great touch on floaters from the left side, from the right side, from the middle. He's very crafty attacking the rim. He doesn't have an incredibly great first step, but he does use his frame very well. Even though he's smaller, he's able to use his body to shield off defenders. He's very crafty. He's got a good hesitation move. And those floaters are just those are something that he can utilize in the NBA, especially with teams dropping back as frequently as they do. He's pretty smart off the ball. A lot of these longer rebounds that his team will get, they'll be looking for him on the three-point line. He does a really good job of relocating in particular on the three-point line, and he does make smart cuts towards the basket when teams fall asleep defensively. He also utilizes pressure on defense. He's going to get up in your face. Similar to Davion Mitchell, who was also a Baylor, he's not quite the same defender. He doesn't quite have the size either, but he is going to get up in your face and play with some intensity on the defensive side of the ball. Now, he's not super explosive and he lacks a little bit of size. These are some of his weaknesses. Another thing that was really concerning for me, especially, was he had some issues at the combine because of a heart issue. Now, he initially was not planning to play at Baylor, but where he committed did not let him play because of this heart issue, so he ended up going to Baylor. Now, this heart issue is definitely a concern. This is similar to what Chris Bosh had, I believe, so I'm definitely worried, but I don't think it's affected him yet, and as long as these teams are aware of it and are closely monitoring it, I do believe he'll be okay. I think that really hurt his draft stock, especially because I do believe he would have performed very well in the combine. He has a weaker handle for a point guard. This comes with him playing alongside Davion Mitchell. He doesn't necessarily have the point guard pedigree you would like if you were going to start him. I think he can develop that pedigree and develop that vision. He tends to make the right plays. He's got championship DNA, which I really like, but I don't think that he's necessarily a true point guard at this moment. I think he can play a little bit more at the 2, but the reason that's concerning is because of his size. A guy at the 2, I would like to be able to play a little bit better defense. So I think he's going to be probably when I was talking with Braden, who was on the mock draft video with me, he's a massive Baylor fan and a massive Grizzlies fan. He compared Jared Butler to DeAnthony Melton, which I actually think that's a fair comparison. For those of you that haven't seen DeAnthony Melton, I think DeAnthony's probably a little bit better of a defender, but otherwise these players play relatively similar. I think Jared Butler's probably a little bit of a better shooter, but I don't think that was a poor comparison. I would say I want him to start his career at least as probably a scorer off the bench, and I would give him some point guard minutes here and there to just try and develop his point guard, ability, especially his handle, I think, could level up a little bit. So up next we've got Moses Moody, 6'6", 211 pounds. Moses is a guy that's supposed to be more so in the lottery area of the draft. Now, I've seen a couple mocks where he goes to 17 or 18. His range, though, is going to be from 18 to 6 or 7. Now, Moses Moody's the prototype 3-and-D guy that you see today in the NBA, and a lot of these teams clamor for. And I think that a guy like this is going to especially be in high demand after you see how well the Phoenix Suns have done in these playoffs. They have several 3-and-D players, including Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder. So I think teams are really going to want a guy like this. He's an incredible glue guy, and I think he's going to provide a lot for any team he's on. He doesn't really have a whole lot of weaknesses, but I'm going to go through this really fast. So strengths. Fantastic jumper. It's a little inconsistent at times, but I think he's got a great foundation. He's shown potential off the dribble, but he's definitely fantastic off the catch. And he's got a good enough first step, honestly. I think that his first step will translate to a degree at the NBA level just because he's so strong as well. He can kind of push defenders to the side with his size and weight and just the ability he kind of handles himself in the paint. He's not scared to take on contact. He's got great length as well. I think this will help him a lot on defense and will make him very switchable. As I was mentioning earlier, positionless basketball is something that we've seen more and more these last several seasons, and I feel like he can switch relatively fluidly on probably 1 through 4. I feel like the 4 may be a stretch a little bit depending on the guy, but he does have the length to at least give it a run for their money. Some weaknesses, as I said, inconsistency on the jumper. He's not an elite ball handler, and he can hoist questionable shots at times. Now, I'm not worried about the handling because that's not the position he's going to be in. He's not going to be the best player on an NBA team like he was on his college team in Arkansas. And he's not going to hoist questionable shots because that's not going to be his role. He's not going to be the guy at the end of the shot clock to take the shot necessarily. I think that he is going to be a player that's going to contribute immediately, and this is why I have him on this list. He's not necessarily a guy that I think is going to go lower than he should, but he's just a guy that I really believe is going to make a great impact immediately on any team he's on, defensively as well as offensively. I don't think that gets enough credit. Some comparisons, there are a lot of guys that I had here. Robert Covington, Mikal Bridges, you could think Nick Batum, DeAndre Hunter, just some guys with length that can also hit the three, and all three of those guys have shown potential to do more than just that offensively as well. I think one website I called it a 3-and-D plus. So he's got some stuff in there that I think if he can work on, he can be a really good player in this league, and a very, very high-end role player at that for a long time. Now, one area of player I would like to address, this isn't necessarily one player alone, but I just want to say kind of one thing I've seen as a trend. So people talk about what a traditional point guard is. Traditional point guard is going to pass you the ball, get his teammates involved, and pass first, right? I really enjoy what I've seen in this draft, and just in general as a change of basketball thing. I think it's kind of a breath of fresh air, how every player is going to be able to score on the court. The point guards this year, at least, they're trending more towards we watched Steph Curry when we were younger, so we play like him now. Now, there's some point guards in this draft that I really like. That includes Trey Mann, Bones Highland, and it just shows Steph Curry's impact on the game, and especially the game at a younger age. You see how it changed the NBA, but it's not only changing the NBA, you see now how it's changing high school basketball and college basketball, and how it inspired some of these younger point guards to kind of become less traditional. Both of those guys have incredible deep shots, and they're not necessarily looking to pass the ball, they're looking to score. And that's something that I think is pretty cool that I just wanted to mention. Both of those guys I've seen in lots of videos similar to this, so I didn't want to mention them necessarily and go too much in depth. But they both are also guys that I think can make relatively decent impacts immediately because of their ability, like I said, to just shoot the deep ball. It's an asset that lots of NBA teams are clamoring for, and I think that they can both be great scorers off the bench. So yeah, that's kind of it for this video. Thanks so much for y'all's support recently. Means a lot, and peace.